The Lord hears the cry of the poor. Blessed be the Lord.
Then Jesus told this parable to some who had great confidence in their own righteousness and scorned everyone else. 2 men went to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, and the other a despised tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed this prayer: I thank you, God, that I am not a sinner, like everyone else. For I do not cheat, I do not sin, nor do I commit adultery. I am certainly not like that tax collector. I fast twice a week, and I give you 1/10 of my income. But the tax collector stood at a distance and dared not even lift his eyes to heaven as he prayed. Instead, he beat his chest in sorrow, saying, "O God, be merciful to me, for I am a sinner." I tell you, this sinner, not the Pharisee, returned home justified before God. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. My brothers and sisters, the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Show of hands. Who's been distracted before? You should all be raising your hands. You're distracted. There you go. I think it's safe to say we've all been distracted. Maybe now more than ever. We all lead busy lives, busy, complicated lives. I'm the worst at being distracted. You can ask my mom. One time she sent me into the store to get cheese. I came out of the store without cheese. I'm like the dog on the movie Up. Squirrel. Where's the squirrel? I have so many balls in the air. There's times where I just can't think. Lately, I catch myself quite often walking through the house to go to do something and stop dead in my tracks and say to myself, what was I doing? Why was I coming in here? Now, you can say that's either a sign of age, please don't tell me that, or a sign of being distracted in my thoughts. In most cases, this has often contributed to stress. But it's safe to say, so many things in life distract us, and our attention can be diverted in so many ways. And yet, I think one of the most important aspects of our faith is to keep our focus always on that one important thing in this life. That is the love and mercy of God. This is the lesson of our gospel today. Two people went to the temple, the Pharisees and the tax collector. And they went there to pray. Often we can allow ourselves to be distracted even in prayer. See, seeing my life is full of distractions, it is easy for me to say that my prayer life too is full of distraction. I had this discussion just this week with my spiritual advisor. He asked me, what is your prayer life like? My answer, crowded. He gave me a puzzled look and I continued by telling him my laundry list of tasks. His response to me, yes, you seem distracted. Yes, that seems crowded. And we see a different type of distraction in the Pharisee. He is completely oblivious to the opportunity he has in prayer to receive God's mercy and his grace. After mentioning God, look where his attention is. It is on himself, how he is justified. Look how great I am. I pay tithes. I fast. Now I know this is a parable, but if I remember correctly, Matthew chapter 6, verses 16 through 18 says, and when you fast, don't make it obvious, as the hypocrites do, for they try to look miserable and disheveled, so people admire them for their fasting. He also lets God know he is not a sinner like everyone else. He doesn't cheat or commit adultery, and he's certainly not like the heathen of the tax collector over there. I hate to break it to him, but we're all sinners. Whether we want to acknowledge this or not, we are all sinners. And let's take a moment to think about our own judgment. At least I'm not like that prostitute over there or that drug addict over here. Well, here's the problem with that. Being like a prostitute or drug addict is not the standard that we should be living by. The standard of living we should be living by is being like Jesus. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but our Pharisee's friend is supposed to be there to pray, right? To me, it sounds like he is spending more time judging and boasting himself up to judging and boasting himself up to be praying. His attention is nowhere near praying. Now, no, he's not praying at all. He's judging. He's also using that faculty which God has given us to distinguish among differing things that we need to use in that one area. We can never legitimately use it. In judging other souls, in perceiving ourselves in a kind of self-righteousness. By way of contrast, we see how different this is from the prayer of the tax collector. He is one of heartfelt simplicity. He stands off from a distance. He does not even raise his eyes. He simply repeats over and over, "Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner." He is humble and he's honest. He is aware of who he is. He knows that he needs God for everything, and he focused on that one thing, the infinite mercy of God. This is how our prayers to God are meant to be. God knows everything. He knows the deepest and the darkest aspects of our lives that we try to hide from everyone, sometimes even to ourselves. He longs to heal us with his mercy at the very core of our being, to strengthen us so we continue on this path, this journey of life. Now, Paul was also on a journey. We heard in the second reading about his journey near the end of his life. He was a prisoner in Rome, facing his imminent death. He says the time of death is near. I have fought the good fight. And that is certainly true. Paul tells us of all the pain and struggle he has had to endure for the sake of the gospel. The repeated lashes, the beaten with rods, the stoned, and he was even shipwrecked. Dangers from bandits, and sadly enough, dangers from his own people. Many times hungry and thirsty, cold, naked, all in the name of the Lord. He goes on, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. Finish the race. Quite often when I'm upset with someone, I use the phrase, we're all just trying to run the race. Paul ran his race. There was another phrase from Paul in the reading which stood out to me. He says, as for me, my life has already been poured out on an offering to God. His entire life has been a pouring out and emptying out on behalf of the gospel. This is an interesting metaphor because for many of us, the good life is a life that is filled up, not poured out. It's about what I have rather than what I give away. The more I get, the happier I am. The more I got, the more impressive my life has been. Do you feel this is true? The more you have, the happier you'll be. What else? How about ego? Look at the treasure trove of my ego. I filled my life up with a lot of things. Things like fame, esteem, success, money, property, assets, power, privilege, awards, degrees. It's about filling up. Life is all about me, about who I am and what I have. This is the Pharisee that we met in today's gospel. He is so filled with himself and his own achievements that there's no room for God in his life. Paul measures his life not by what he's accumulated, but by how much he's given away. What, my brothers and sisters, have you given away? Are you consumed by the pursuit of the things I listed? The fame, the money, success, and privilege? Then what makes a life worth living? The good life is not the sum of our security, wealth, status, career, success, levels of happiness. The good life is one defined by our capacity for selflessness. We can either be imprisoned by our own egos, or we can pour out our lives selflessly in the service of others, which is what God intended. And what would we be missing out on if we didn't act in the name of selflessness? The love and mercy of God. The tax collector got it right. He humbly empties himself, begging for God's mercy. As for Paul, his life is a fight well fought, a life poured out in service of others. Now it's your turn. Go out and be the service to others too. And that, my brothers and sisters, is the gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Praise to God.
The Lord hears the cry of the poor. Blessed be